Here's something else you might want to jot down as well. This comes from a speaker I heard maybe 10 years ago, and I can still picture him saying this. You are what you tolerate. You are what you tolerate. So if I choose to tolerate Fernando's bad behavior, if I choose to put up with his misalignment with our values, what have I now become as a leader? Well, best case scenario, I have become an encourager of bad behavior. I've become a supporter of bad behavior. Worst case scenario, have I now not become the terrorist? Because I'm allowing someone to behave in a way that I know is counter to our values, counter to our culture, our norms. Have I now not become the terrorist? You are what you tolerate. Here's something else to think about. If I decide to keep Fernando, knowing he's a terrorist, what impact will that have on the rest of my team, particularly my superstars? Well, that's
you will have more terrorists there.
Yeah, I will, because terrorists are always recruiting.
Yep.
Terrorists are always recruiting. But here's something else. Your superstars are volunteers.
They can leave.
Your superstars are volunteers. They can work anywhere they want. They can pick a company, right? They're that good. And just as they have volunteered to work for your company, they can volunteer to work for another company. The quickest way to lose a superstar is to keep a terrorist. Because at some point, if Carlos is my superstar, at some point he'll say, I don't need this. I don't need to be working with that guy. I'll go work for Josh's company. They don't have any terrorists at Josh's company. I'll go work there. Quickest way to lose a superstar is to keep a terrorist.
And Tim, one of the things that I would want to share, I got my professional start with GE. And an intern while Jack was there, read a lot of his literature. Their structure, which totally aligns with what you're saying, is within their performance evaluations, they're A, B, and C players. So you've got your superstars as your A players. That's usually their top 20. You have your middle 70. That'll be, your Deadwoods, or more so your, what do we call them? Our, the middle ground, the
middle part of the Welch grid. Yeah.
And then you've got your C players that are, or your cheerleaders and your Deadwoods are your B players. And then your C players are your terrorists, which, usually are your bottom 10, and you want to, relieve them of their role within the organization, find a better fit in another business, because GE was a behemoth at the time in the top 5, Fortune 500, or, help them find job placement somewhere else in another company. So that was the way in which what you're describing was implemented within the organization.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So isolation doesn't work with a terrorist. Coaching rarely, if ever, works with a terrorist. The third and the most popular option with a terrorist: do nothing. Prayer. Literally. So many of the people I work with just choose to either ignore the terrorist or just pray that the terrorist will go away. Rarely does that happen. In fact, usually it's the opposite. I think, as someone said earlier, is the terrorist is always recruiting, always looking for more terrorists. So to ignore the problem is probably the worst thing that we can do. The fourth option, and the best option, and yet the most difficult option, is to fire the terrorist, get rid of the terrorist. And I say it's the most difficult Why is that? Why am I fearful of letting the terrorists go? Anybody?
Retaliation.
I'm sorry?
Retaliation.
Yeah, I'm fearful of retaliation. This guy's crazy. This woman's nuts, right? I'm fearful of retaliation. I'm also fearful if they're in sales that they may take some of our clients with them, right? And that's part of retaliation would be, hey, you know, I'm going to take all this business that I brought, I'm going to take it with me. Yeah, so I'm fearful of retaliation, fearful of what this crazy person's going to do. What else am I fearful of?
Well, they actually do perform.
They are
So-
performing, so I'm fearful of losing that performance. Yeah, I'm fearful of that. Anything else? And yet, on the flip side, has anyone ever fired a terrorist? Raise your hand, fired a terrorist. What was that like the next day?
Peace of mind.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's like the sun has come up for the first time in months. Your employees, your colleagues are stopping by your office and they're high-fiving you because they've been waiting for the day that you dealt with the terrorist. So it's like it's a whole new day because that terrorist is living rent-free right here, right in your head, 7/24, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. That terrorist is living rent-free right here. And all of a sudden they're gone. It's like, oh my goodness, I kind of like this job now.